Hello and welcome to our second panel of SHE Summit 2025. My name is Lynn Gitao, Communications Director of GatherVerse, and I am joined with a roster of amazing panelists who we are going to discuss on the important issue on Fund Her, the need to fund more women startups. Fund Her, the need to fund more startups for women leaders. Well, it is my honor to introduce my fellow panelists, and I will start with you, Sosha, passing it all the way up to Kim. And I ask you to be brief and tell us who you are and why you are here. Over to you, Sosha. Sosha, your mic. Okay, as she figures out, okay. Let's go to you, Angel. Tell us who you are and why you are here. Your mic, please. We can't hear you. Yeah. We still can't hear you, Mud. All right. Naja, over to you.
Hopefully you guys can hear me. Beginner's luck. Awesome. So guys, happy to be here, or girls, I think is the flavor of tonight. Very happy to be here. My name is Natya Bester. I'm the co-founder of AdLunam. We're a Web3 investment ecosystem. I've been in the Web3 space for many years. I've been in the corporate, I was in the corporate space before that. Yeah, I think it's the same kind of patterns that follow us. So happy to be dissecting this tonight.
We're happy to have you once again. We love you. Diane, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diane Chapasi. I'm the founder of Grace May LLC, a consulting firm dedicated to empowering founders and entrepreneurs with the strategic legal guidance, cultural intelligence, and ethical business strategies. I'm also an attorney for over a decade of experience advising Fortune 500 companies and startups. As first generation immigrant myself, as well as a business leader, I'm deeply committed to supporting women in unlocking their full potential, creating sustainable businesses, and navigating this very complex world of entrepreneurship and confidence. So very honored today to be able to share the insights with this wonderful group of women here and hopefully close the funding gap for women-led startups and build a more inclusive environment for entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. We are happy to have you. Let's close that funding gap. Alison, over to you.
Hi, thank you. And thanks for having me on here. The conversation so far has been really, really engaging and very interesting to listen to. And I am really looking forward to our discussion today. My background is I came from corporate and was really, really motivated to just get into the entrepreneurial space. My mind was just moving too fast for the juggernaut of the corporate world. I'm a 3-time founder. I've exited and received VC investment, and currently still founding companies whilst investing in them. I'm active in the ecosystem in UK and Ireland, supporting the ecosystem through designing accelerators and offering funding supports and mentoring throughout them. So it's a really interesting space. I'm specifically focused on diversity, so diversity of all times, of all types. I like to refer to it as the new majority, as if you look at everyone of color, of differing races, of age, and of gender, it outweighs all of those white males. So I really focus on the new majority and how we can really close that funding gap and actually flip it over. So it really should be the majority of the funding.
Thank you, Alison. We will come back to you. Kim, please tell us who you are briefly.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you all so much. I'm very honored to be here as well. I am a certified financial planner and founder of NextGen Wealth Partners, where I aim to bridge the wealth gap that exists in the United States. And I am very excited to speak on this topic today. Seeing as how I am in a male-dominated field, I have experienced what it's like to be forced to fit into this box, this way of doing things. So being able to disrupt and challenge that and be a part of this conversation today is really an honor. So I look forward to it.
We look forward to having your questions too. Sasha, over to you.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for the initial technical understanding. I also have some background noise. She just woke up in time for the talk, so she just couldn't miss out. This is baby Annan on my lap. My name is Saoirse Mulligan. I'm based in Ireland. I'm an advisor, advocate, and investor in the diversity, blockchain, immersive tech, emerging tech field. I've been working in startup world since 2016, always in and around the money side of it, working initially as advisor and then back into the money field side on a venture partner perspective and now into direct funding. I guess my focus at the moment, having a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old and having had a couple of instances where I could take some time out to really have a look at the macro and the micro of what's going right and what's going wrong. In terms of funding, not much has changed, as we're all aware of. I think the narrative is a huge part of it. We really have to focus on positivity, completely flip the script and talk about the 98% opportunity that exists for VCs to invest. We need to look at new models for VCs. At the moment, VCs invest or focus their funds investing in a portfolio of startups and spend the majority of time investing their time and energy in 1 to 3 of those startups and kind of let the others float along and are willing to let 50 to 75% of their portfolio fail. And if we could just get some forward-looking VCs to turn around and say, well, look, what are you doing with the funds that you're writing off? We have this huge opportunity that exists for women and diverse leaders. So let's change the narrative and see who's willing to take the baton and invest.
Yeah, I agree. And that is a very passionate talk. And we're coming back to you on that. Angel, please introduce yourself briefly, and then we come to you, Melrose, and then we'll get started with the conversation.
Awesome. Hope you all can hear me now. Yes.
Yes.
Great. Greetings, everyone. I'm Angelique Doyne. I'm one of the co-founders of Disruptor DAO. We are disrupting the wealth gap through education and investments in disruptive technology. And so we spend a lot of time really educating ourselves. This world of Web3 and immersive technologies is so expansive. And so we are a group of entrepreneurs, business women who came together to co-create and build together, because we recognize, and really moving into 2025 and beyond, the power of collective investment, the power of working together and building together collectively. And so that's what we're all about at Disruptor DAO. So feel free to follow us on all socials, visit us online to sign up for our newsletter. But that's Disruptor DAO, and I'm very, very excited and grateful to be a part of the conversation today.
We're happy to have you. Let's disrupt. Melrose, tell us who you are briefly.
Hey everyone, I'm Melrose. I operate a financial firm called Permaculture Capital. I'm a placement agent. I raise capital professionally. I came to this profession through the frustrations of raising capital for my own CPG company that I ran for 6 years. We were in 15 stores. We were ready to scale. Went out to raise capital, was highly demoralized, asked why I don't just get married. Why are you doing this? Who do you think you are? I was having all sorts of issues with the fashion industry at that point, environmental concerns, IP protection problems, physical health issues from touching polyester, rayon, spandex, nylon. We were in swimwear. Decided to jump ship and pivot. That was about 8 years ago. I've worked as a placement agent. We raised for 8 funds. I worked at Merrill Lynch as a wealth manager under a very successful female manager who had $1 billion under management with 50 matriarchs at the time. She now has $3.5 billion under management with matriarchs. Over the last 2 years, I've been operating my firm. We're going into our 3rd year. Half my clients are female, it takes 10 times as much work to get them one meeting, and they get a tenth of the size of the checks. I personally feel like us trying to get more female LPs and go through the VC process for women it's going to work, but it's going to take 15 years. So we're building something called Decision Society, which is where it's a marketplace, and we allow women to upload their companies. We serve as an intermediary, and we help them find fractional operators, and we give them the equity that they would have given to VC, which also cuts out bad players in the operation space, which can really kill women's businesses. And they don't get the equity unless they perform the metrics that we pre-negotiate. We're building out the platform now. We have about 500 companies signed up. We did one round of outreach, which kind of gave us the motivation to keep going. In just 3 days, we had 500 women sign up, both from the operator side and the female founder side. So I'm really bullish on that. I want women to invest, but in other women, but I understand women come to the table. We're living longer lives, and we have financial disparity in our lives compared to men. So we can't really take those venture risks. So
just hold that thought.
That's what we're doing.
Coming to you. We are coming to you, and you're gonna tell us all these.
Okay, sorry. There you go. That's who I am.
Just hold that thought. Maybe we can just start. I've had all these stories. We all have one common goal here: to bridge the funding gap. And where is my screen? Okay. There's something I want us to tackle first of all, because I've had all of us saying there's a gap here. What are the barriers that prevent women from accessing funding for startups, and how can we make it more inclusive? I will start with you, Naja. Maybe you can share briefly, why do you have these existing barriers?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is such a complex question that we can probably spend the entire panel just talking about this. But I think, just kind of touching here and there on a few key things. I think in terms of a cognitive bias perspective, there's a lot of bias the minute that a woman steps into the room. And this is just at the onset to say that this is not something to, kind of finger point, this gender does that to that gender. Historically speaking, I mean, women have only been emancipated for a few decades, depending on the country, right? Up until a few decades ago, women couldn't work, they couldn't vote. And so to go from that environment where women were seen as, a particular role in a particular way, and to now stepping into an environment where, historically speaking, there was a different bias. You have affinity bias where someone who looks like you, someone who talks like you, someone who has the same history as you, pattern matching that you have. Okay, this is what my brain sees. This is what my brain recognizes. This is how it works. So if you look at bias, I mean, women, there's a bias against women in the sense that an investor, for example, will ask a female founder a risk-averse question. What are you going to do to avoid X? Whereas, when it comes to a male founder, the question very often is more vision focused. What are you going to do to scale this? So inherently, the minute you step into the conversation, there is bias. But that's an external input, I would say. I think for me, based on my own experience as a founder, whether this is, having received funding in other businesses, not having had funding, I think the biggest thing starts here because we don't see a lot of representation in terms of, well, first of all, I think Mel touched on it already. I mean, we need more VCs, we need more LPs, we need more women in high-level positions that are making these decisions. But we also need to see more representation. When I go on LinkedIn, when I go on, the websites that are announcing the funding, I want to see people like me. I want to see women. I want to see, I'm from South Africa. I don't see women getting funding. I don't see South African women getting funding. So I think, the really big issue is that it feels impossible until it's done. But if other women are not doing it, it's hard to imagine that the funds are out there and yes, I'm able to access them. So I think it's this external bias that people have, but then also internally, I need to have the confidence. I need to know that there's representation out there. And ultimately, I need to be able to step into a room and to get those meetings. I think Mel touched on it. I need to have people say yes to me in the first place.
Thank you, Naja, for that heartfelt expression. And I agree about that. On confidence, there's a very good place. There's a place for confidence as us women founders to believe, even if no one has done it. We are here to break barriers. And this leads me to the next questions on support. As we're just talking about breaking these barriers, support plays a very crucial role. Diane, I'm coming to you. What types of support are the most critical for women founders throughout the startup life cycle? And if anyone wants to chime in on that, please do. Diane.
Yeah, sure. I think you mentioned the keyword life cycle, right? Like the support has to be throughout the whole startup life cycle. We oftentimes see companies focus on one area or one particular stage of your company and not the other one. But as women founder, we like to see different varieties of types of support. And talking about early stage, right? I think early stage mentorship, incubation programs to help women founders to refine their business models, those are critical at the early stage. And again, although this topic is about funding, but I think the selection process for these programs, mentorship and incubation programs, can sometimes suffer the same type of bias and other challenges for similar as how we get not getting enough funding. So I like to also draw those the difficult barriers in these programs as well. And then other than that, I think access to accelerators or grant programs are, which are specifically designed for women entrepreneurs, can be helpful and critical. And post-investment advisory support, which is something I see is a lack of in today's environment. We tend to sometimes focus on too much on the early stage, but not enough on the post-investment advisory support, which is a part or stage of the life cycle. I think is critical, important. And it's also very important to have that support just for women founders as well. In general, I think building communities for peer support, the shared resources and collaborations can be applicable throughout the whole ecosystem. And I, personally find it very helpful to have a circle of peers to get those supports and resources with the people who are walking the same type of walk as I'm walking through. So those are a few things I can think of, which I think, are critical in terms of support.
Yeah,
that is very powerful. Yeah, please.
I would like to add to that, Diane. Thank you for all those things. Absolutely. The piece that stood out to me was the advisory support and getting into the rooms, because we know that deals are made every day. There's a lot of money circulating. People are getting funded left and right? And we also know that it's all about relationships. It's all about getting into the rooms and navigating those circles to connect with the right people. And so in alignment with what you were sharing, Dion, about the advisory role, the mentorship, really building robust relationships so that you can connect with your mentors and your advisory to get into those rooms where those decisions are made, or into those events where those conversations and the ideas are shared and folks are making commitments, right? And so that support of getting into the right spaces, getting to the right people is so important, in addition to also building community 100,000% for sure. Because as a founder, and also as a founder raising funds, and also an entrepreneur, having a tribe of other folks also experiencing the same thing, we can support each other's mental health and well-being, support just being balanced as things are always coming up. So having that peer support group is also incredibly valuable.
I totally agree with that. And I would just like to praise GatherVerse for being one of that communities, if you allow me. Maybe we can go to the next question. And I pass to you, Alison, and anyone who wants to jump in on this can. How does greater investment in women entrepreneurs contribute to societal and economic development?
Yeah, and I think this is a really interesting point because, if you look at a traditional home, quite often it is the female role that manages the household budget, right? And when you think of that in a societal box, it's really then it is that female role that is, perhaps teaching or creating those financial management processes within the children as well, within that household. And what you see is that if you have, if you are privileged and you have, two partners where both are working, quite often, it will be the female's salary that is running the household, where the male's salary will be spent on luxury items or invested. And so you see that it is the female's contribution that has the larger economic impact. And that is true in the majority of economic zones throughout the world. And so by investing in a female-run business, you are helping to drive that, financial security, that financial management, and that, driving where that money is going to be spent. But what you see is when you invest in, there's some interesting research has been done around this, is that when you invest in a female-led startup or a female-led company, where is that money spent? And how they're actually spending that money. They're putting it back. They think about the societal impact. So they're thinking about who they're hiring. They're not just hiring. They're thinking about who they're hiring and what is their story. And so they think about more than just a CV, right? Or they think about where is that money? Am I going to use a development team offshore, or can I use a development team locally? Right? And what's the impact of that? And, and so you see that when you provide a female with an amount of financial security, they're really cognizant about where that money is going to be spent. And sometimes they realize they're doing this. And sometimes, in the majority of times, they're not, they have a blindness to it. And so it is so inbuilt into their processes that they're not even aware that they're making these decisions before spending that money or allocating it. And so then you see the growth and the development of the economy that these investments make versus the same business run by an all-male team. And we're not here to, completely dish on men. That's not the whole, we're talking about parity here. And it's just, the way that we're wired. The male brain is just not taking those considerations into consideration in an automatic fashion, whereas the majority of females are. And it really does drive the local economic environment. They do lift up, how can I help people in my community? How can, you see a lot of very early startups have CSR applications where maybe they're contributing to a food bank, or maybe they're doing a breakfast clubs at school. And that's even before they're hitting revenue. And it's just small things that they're contributing to that they're aware of, even at a very early stage of getting financial funding. So I think that it's the way we're wired, and you see it it's unconsciously done, and the impact is significant.
I totally agree on that. Somehow conscious us, it happens subconsciously in our minds, and we plan ahead. I think, Sosha, I saw you sharing some statistics about this. Maybe you would like to chime in on this. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. And I always love hearing Alison speak, and the background and depth of experience that she has as an angel investor. And I know her personally as well, and we're working on something in the background. So it's fantastic to share this panel with her as well. I guess from the economic perspective on a macro level, there's imbalance. And we can see that across society. We can see that across the environment. And how do we rectify or correct imbalance? When we have imbalance in the biggest parts of our economy and in our nature and our natural resources, people are generally unhappy, they're worried, they're scared. We need to start looking at where there is opportunity, and that opportunity is in the rooms that we've just been talking about, Anjali and Mary Rose and Nadia, these tribes of women and allies as well that we have across the world. Personally, I'm involved with 8 different industry groups, from the Association of Women in Crypto to Block W, Blockchain Ireland, Women in Immersive Technology Europe, the Impact Innovation Foundation, and many more, where there are dozens, if not hundreds, of startups that are ready to go. They have gone through the boot camps, they've gone through the accelerators, they're mentored to the hilt, they are ready to be funded. And one of the words that I heard just a few minutes ago was the commitment, the committed resources and the conviction to spend. And there's nowhere to hide anymore in terms of, oh, not ready. What's not ready is the attitude of investors. And that's on a global basis. And the only way to change that is to literally tear down the doors over the next year and get those commitments. And I'm one of those people that will absolutely be doing that. You'll be sick of hearing about it from me. We need economic change. And the only way to do that is to get in front of people's faces and tell the story and demand the change, because we've been nice about it. We've been really nice. We've smiled and we've sat and we've nodded and we're done, okay? We can still be nice, but we can be forceful too.
Yeah,
We've got power.
I totally agree with you, Sosha. That was so powerful. And anytime I see Sosha coming in, I know the force is coming in, and it's high time to get that commitment. I'm coming over to you, Kim. What are the key factors women should focus on to attract investors? Sosha talked about the investor side. Maybe you can talk about the startup side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to piggyback on this notion of women stepping into their power. There's a part of me that just, as we're discussing all of these topics and themes, that keeps coming up for me is the tenacity and the not taking no for an answer. And if we're met with one roadblock, then we just keep going. So that's the first thing, is just understanding that as a startup female entrepreneur, we're probably going to be told no more than once. But as Sorcha mentioned, we're used to that, right? We're tired of being nice, so it's time to get the work done. The work done in the world that we know needs to be done. I would say a part of that also is just plugging into the data that exists that shows that when women are funded, our businesses grow in an accelerated fashion. So whatever sort of doubts exist in our minds, we can easily overcome that with the data. Beyond that, as a financial planner, I would say, the obvious, which is having a business plan, having your financials in order, having the conversations with the people in the room that could either make a decision in funding you or point you in the direction of getting the funding that's needed. And to sort of close that loop on that topic and piggyback, if I may, on the question beforehand, there is a lot to be said for the imbalance that exists. And so if we want to get really philosophical, we can say, well, the only constant is change. We all know this on a deeper level. But we're also met with this generalized fear that exists when things change. And I think one of the things that we're battling in general is this system that has existed for so long. It can be hard to change that. And I think part of the energy that we need to be in as well is just like, yeah, change is hard. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. It doesn't mean that we can't do it, but that is one of the things that we face as well. So I think that's it that I wanted to contribute.
Yeah. Thank you, Kim. And also, I want to add something on that. Ladies and the female startups should not be fearful. They should be courageous. And they should carry along a tribe like the one we have here. They should have a circle like the one we have here. And I want to go to you, Sosha, again, but be brief with that. And Angel, you're also going to contribute on this. What should investors prioritize when backing led businesses? Okay.
My immediate answer is because of the opportunity that exists, the overlooked mass of that 98% keeps flashing in my head as this huge capital opportunity. And if we're looking at, from the VC perspective, that we have a fund and we're ready to write off 50 to 75% as a loss, then what's the risk? What is the risk? It's the attitude. It's the fear of change. So let's talk in male words. Let's talk about courage. Let's talk about warriors. Let's talk about the heroes that are going to come in and partner with us to turn this around. Because the model that got us to where we are today of 370 billion venture capital market, and completely depleted resources, depleted societies, depleted money, and overlooked women and diversity. Well, the same model, if looked at from a balanced, intelligent, inclusive perspective, could get us back on track in a much more responsible way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, what Kim and Sosha were just saying, and also all of the conversation is that women, we are holistic creators, right? Like we're able, and I think Allison may have said to this too, we're able to look at a problem and think about multiple solutions, right? That it's going to take to really get to the root cause of solving the problem, not just for tomorrow, but for many moons to come. And so that's also too what investors should look at when funding female founders, is that we are solutions oriented, solutions based, and holistic creators, and are able to, and this is what I love so much about our disruptor community, is that we are initially started with a tribe of 11 women who are all entrepreneurs in our own right, and brilliant women that I'm so proud of and for. And we're able to bring our various expertise to the table to really co-create together holistic solutions. And so when investors are looking for, new unicorns, or we're then looking for solutions or technologies that solve problems for generations, definitely having a diverse group of founders, and also working with our allies. Like you were saying, we cannot do this without our allies, our friends and our partners, to really move the dial in moving that number up, as you were saying, Sosha, from how many female funded groups are funded to expanding that globally. So definitely we have a holistic view, and that's one of the main things that investors should look for.
And one very, very quick point on that is that pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, private equity, hedge funds are all hungry for money. They're all hungry. So again, this is the huge opportunity that exists. And pension funds, what is the point in having, and sovereign wealth investments, what is the point in having lots and lots of money, stranded assets, stranded capital because of what's happening to the environment, what's happening to society, wars, etc.? What's the point in having all of that money just sitting there? Shouldn't it just be put to work to save what we have, our not infinite resources, and put money to work now? That just seems like a much smarter model, and I wish that I heard more people talking about it. And there's one more shout out that I need to do, which is the Tech Found Her group, which I didn't mention earlier on, which are absolutely phenomenal, and Global Invest Her. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Even the baby agrees too. Melrose, Angela mentioned about networks, and I want you to maybe teach us, how do female founders build networks that genuinely uplift them?
So I think you have two types of female founders, and you have a bunch of different reasons why women start companies. I think that's kind of why the funding pathway is different for women, because they often don't go into a VC and say, I want to exit this company for $100 million in 5 years. They want to build companies that they can live in their purpose. They don't want to get banned from their purpose after they sell the company. They want to, what are the motivations for women to build companies? It's very different than a very trained male perspective on capitalism and patriarchal domination. So first you have to look at the motivation. So if those women go out who are highly motivated to come in with a patriarchal structured business where they're going to exit, they're probably going to build networks with a lot of men, and they're actually probably going to have gone to an Ivy League school and have a network already built from their curiosity. But if you get women who don't have, let's call it privilege or luxury of being white, being married, having Ivy League, having MBAs, then you actually have to start going out and being hyper vigilant about building a network. But it actually can become an extremely isolating experience. And I would say that more important than going out and building a network is taking care of mental health and physical health and spiritual health before you go out and interact with the world. I have 12 female founders. I should say I had 12 female founders. Last year, one was found dead in a sauna, and the other one had a heart attack. And people don't talk about the risks of women starting companies. I watch most of my women have mental health roller coasters throughout the year. I can't force investors to invest in them. And when you start witnessing women who have great networks, who are unable to raise capital and move their companies forward, who don't have a lot of these privileges, you start realizing maybe it's time for us to go around VC for early stage instead of trying to go through this toxic system. So I think women build things because they're frustrated. And I think there's a lot of female bankers and professionals in this industry right now who have had enough. We've watched friends die. We've watched friends lose their parents' pension and their friends and family money. And we ourselves have been through it. I think we're all lucky to be alive here who are founders, because it's a really scary, terrifying process. I also think us beating up women about not investing in VC is also not the answer. And I also think telling VCs they need to invest when they can't even raise money is also problematic. So we've got a lot of systemic functions and failures, but I think we have to start with motivations and self-care. The women who actually get through this have incredible grit. They build networks from a centered place, and they really care about the people in their network. They don't just meet someone at a conference and bump their phone into it and then go through and try to connect with the person later. They spend the time, they get to know the person, they know the kids' first names, we know how to invest and build network. It's just a matter of if we're mentally and spiritually fit for this journey. And it's much longer than any of us set out for it to be. And we deal with a lot more regulations and systemic issues than I think anyone who goes into it understands. So I think you have to build a network, not based on trauma bonding, but based on who are you and who are you presenting to this new network? And are you coming from your heart and your purpose, or are you coming from desperation and fear that you're going to lose all that you've already invested? And I see a lot of women who don't take that time. I also see a lot of women going to female conferences and having these very echo chambery conversations. It's really important we go to male-led conferences and we wear bright pink or yellow and we stand out. And yes, you bond with the women there. That's natural. But you actually you have to learn how to walk up and have a presence with 6 men and actually get every one of their cards and then follow up with them the next day and go to lunch with them and be a professional, right? So, but how you do that spiritually, I think, is something that most women in this industry are really struggling with. And after losing basically 2 clients last year from just the stress of it all, I think creating a support system and network for your ascension spiritually is actually what comes before you try to raise capital.
Thank you, Mel, for sharing that. That was very, very profound and very, very deep. And sorry for the loss of your two founders. I empathize with them, and I totally understand the journey of entrepreneurship is very, very hard. So if you're a part of the audience and you have a relative or a friend who is an entrepreneur, kindly support them, check up on them, be their backup system of their pillars. Just to go on governments, and Melrose mentioned something on governments, and I want to jump this to you, Naja. How can government, institutions, and private sector work together to close the funding gap for women-led startups? Briefly.
Yeah, I mean, I think governments have been doing this around the world. I think, just to kind of build on or really just add to what Melrose was saying is, and really everyone on this panel, I think there's the top-down approach of, institutions, organizations, governments, all sorts of, circles of people that come together to achieve things. There has to be a trickle-down effect of understanding that, certain minority groups, whether it's gender, whether it's other minority groups, these groups have to be supported. But I think what I've heard echo throughout the panel today, and that's certainly my own belief as well, is we really have to start here. Because I think, if you step into a room and you step into a room as a female founder that you already know you are at a disadvantage, and now there's this help that's, been extended to you. It might work, it might not work. I think the issue is that ultimately, very often, women get opportunities, and they pass us by due to our own inability to believe that this is going to make a difference, that this is going to, be the thing that moves the needle. So what I would say on the government efforts, I mean, there's all sorts of things, there's tax incentives. In South Africa, we have a very strong focus on elevating women, maybe not so much in startup funding. I think that's an issue everywhere, but, generally speaking, there are all these programs. But I think, if I walk into a room and I walk into a room knowing that I'm a woman and I'm at a disadvantage, that very often puts me at a disadvantage. So, just as a final thought, when I walk into a room, I really try and focus on, I'm a highly competent person. For the first few minutes, people are going to treat me a certain way because I'm a woman. But because of how competent I am, I always see that at some point, there's this kind of needle that shifts in their head. And it's like, oh, now it's more about the gender. Now it's about the substance. And so I think for us as women, as female founders, especially when it comes to funding, look in the mirror every day and drill into your head that, you are worth getting what you're getting because you're worth it. Yes, we are at certain disadvantages because of our gender, because of the systemic imbalances historically. But let's start each day and say, you know what? Despite all of this, I'm still going to push through, even if it takes 15 years, even if it takes 30 years, but it really has to start here, because I think that's the reason very often that it takes so long. And then ultimately just representation, because if a female founder, if a deck crosses my desk that happens to be a female founder, I'm not making decisions whether or not they're female, but because I'm female, I don't necessarily look at the gender. Whereas if I was male, maybe the gender would be more of a bother to me. So again, that's the question about representation. What are governments doing? Well, governments then should make sure that there are women in as many places as possible, so that when I, walk into a room, I see another woman like myself there, and I'm like, okay, cool, I can do this. She got this, I got this too.
Thank you, Naja. That was powerful. And we only have a little time left. And to close off very, very briefly, Diane, what untapped opportunities exist for women entrepreneurs globally? Just briefly tell us, and then we can close off.
Yeah, briefly, I think we should take advantage of all the new emerging industries, such as fintech, health tech, education tech, all those new emerging in markets. I think it's opportunities for everybody, and we do not necessarily need to include ourselves, exclude ourselves from those opportunities. Secondly, I think women have enormous opportunity in the sustainable businesses or ESG focused solutions, and which can continue to be a focus globally. And just because we care certain things more than our male leaders. As someone that's very passionate about the AI governance and for responsible AI, I think AI and data-driven technologies allow more effective innovation these days. So I would encourage everyone, especially female or women entrepreneurs, to explore the AI space and then see how it's going to propel new innovations, or even scale up their current enterprises or companies.
Thank you so much. I also encourage women to explore the emerging technologies world, right? This was such a powerful conversation. We could go on. A lot was shared and we learned a lot. And I would encourage our audience, please follow these amazing ladies, connect with them, learn from them, engage with them. And thank you so much for dedicating your precious time to join us. Our gather was